Hi there, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is Listening Beyond the Soundbites. Joining me in studio today is Ture Nelson. I know Ture because he is currently interim town manager or town administrator for Berlin, which is where I live. But more importantly for this show is he is running for Vermont's Attorney General. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Ture was just on the show we did, and I hope you look it up. It was a great show on crime. Sort of depressing.
It is.
I have actually changed the way we close our house up every night. I never used to lock my doors, but they're locked now, and a few other surprises.
Yes.
Which I won't share, but I changed the way I do things.
Well, unfortunately, as a follow-up to last week's show, there was a big incident in Berry City this week. I forget if it was a Monday night or Tuesday night, a high-speed chase.
Oh, really?
Somebody tried running over police officers and things
Whoa.
like that. And the alleged was one of the alleged perpetrators in the criminal incident we talked about here on the show.
Oh, you're kidding.
So that just goes to show how messed up our criminal justice system is, and somebody like that involved in a home invasion, a violent home invasion,
right.
Is still able to, roam the streets, and not just roam the streets, but get into further trouble while
right, and they know who
released.
he is. And
Correct.
did they catch him?
They did catch him and arrested him for that, but I don't know if he's still in jail or not to this point.
Because they should look back. He attacked Alva.
Correct.
With a
violently, yes.
Yeah, put a hole right through his leg
yes.
with his what is it?
I think it was a screwdriver or something like that, right?
I'm so handy around the house.
Yeah.
Anyway, but thank you so much for coming on. That's really, I'll have to call. We had Alva on and his mother. Alva was involved in a very serious home invasion in July, I believe. It was early July during the day. That's what's really upsetting. It's, sometimes I always think something's going to happen at night, but no, they apparently do it during the day when they think you're not home.
Correct.
And then he was home, so there you go. But they shouldn't, I hope they don't just let him go out again.
Right.
I mean, can you just hold him? Oy.
Anyway. He's got the established track record or history of not being able to comply with the terms of release and everything.
Right, exactly. No, well, I mean, how many times, it kills me, there's one guy, I know, that, and I don't mean to, take away from the show here, but the third guy that was trying to take a shot at President Trump, former President Trump, he had guns and different IDs in his car. He had all of ammunition and all of this stuff. Did we let him go? Yes, we did. How do you do that? I mean, obviously the guy's intent was not a good intent.
That's right.
So
we don't hold anybody accountable anymore in society.
No, the poor baby something must have happened in his youth, so we felt sorry for him. Unbelievable. Anyway, this is very exciting, certainly for you and for our town that you're running. And could you tell us a little bit of background about what your experience has been and where we met?
Well, we first met not too long ago, about 20 years or so
exactly.
ago. That's not very
too
long for
no.
the two of us, no. But I worked for 32 years with the U.S. Department of Transportation. I was an investigator with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and rose up through the ranks. Became the division administrator for the Vermont division, where I oversaw a grant program with the state, which is where we met, with the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Agency of Transportation. Also had a staff of investigators that worked under me that would go out and do investigations on trucking companies and hazardous material shippers across Vermont, and interestingly enough, Quebec, Canada.
Oh.
For the companies in Quebec that come down into the U.S., they were handled through my office.
Oh, that's cool.
That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I retired from that, 2 years, not tomorrow, 2 years, Tuesday.
Oh, really?
2 years ago Tuesday, I retired, and that didn't last long. Because right after that, how many times have you tried to retire?
Three officially.
And here you are.
Right.
And you know, not too long after that, I had no intentions of it, but I got back on the select board.
Right.
And then a couple months after that, Vince Conti, the town administrator for Berlin, he was left on a leave of absence, and you know, said, well, would I be interested in? And I'm like, there's no way I can do that and still be on the select board.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
checked with all the attorneys, and they said, yes, you can do both. And so that's where I'm at.
Well, there you go.
And it ended up starting 2 days after the floods last July,
Great
which
timing.
was a great time to get
timing.
involved again. Right, right.
I didn't realize you were right after the flood like that.
It was,
What
yes.
a terrible time to jump in.
That's
and-
right.
Because you get either blamed or credited for whatever is the situation.
Some of both, correct.
Yeah, right, exactly. I always find that interesting when you take on a job, whatever the condition is, you had nothing to do with it, but it's your problem.
It's now yours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
the buck
right.
stops here.
I think we did it all right. I mean, thank God.
We're still working with
Yeah.
FEMA through a lot of things. Their process, and that, you know, this might be a topic for another show.
Yeah, right.
It's just terrible. I mean,
Yeah.
we out of the $1 million of damage we've had, we've received about $35,000 in reimbursement so far. It's just one step after another. They keep changing the process and keep changing who you're dealing with, and you know, the work's been done, but trying to get the, you know, it's like they put more roadblocks to try to prevent them from having to pay anything. So
I had, when I was on WDEV for about a year and a half, 2 years, and during the flood I had FEMA on a lot, and then businesses on, and there wasn't too many thank yous floating around between the businesses and FEMA. And now they're apparently running out of money to deal with Florida and North Carolina and everything. They have no money.
that's right.
I mean, seriously.
Well, that, I mean, the whole, you know, as you're familiar with the whole federal budgeting
Yeah, it's a joke.
mess.
Yep.
You know, they refer to it as making sausage
Right.
in the federal government.
But once it's
but-
there, you should have access
That's
to
right.
it. Why
That's
are you
right.
sitting on it? Anyway, I have
And
a lot
there
of,
was-
I threw in a lot of suggestions while I was talking to FEMA and businesses. I wrote to the main office and said, here's what I think, and I gave them some suggestions. I doubt
just-
that they've done anything.
Just the whole process.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand how government works. Everybody's got their own little piece
Right.
of the pie, but you know, I mean, if you're in the process, you understand it and
Yeah.
you know what to expect.
Right.
But you know, the victims of a disaster,
Right.
they're literally trying to put their lives back
Exactly,
together from
exactly.
scratch.
Right.
They may have some cases lost everything, their home, their employment, all of their belongings,
I can't even
access to
imagine.
their, you know, bank accounts, and even like their driver's license
Right.
and car keys and stuff. You know, even if the car, you know, is still running.
Right.
I mean, who knows how much they lost. And expecting them to go through, find these little silos. Well, you know, you can call this number to get this type of help, and then, but
Yep.
you have to call this number to get this other type of help. And if you're a business,
Yeah.
FEMA won't help you, but you know, you can maybe get a loan from Small Business Administration. I think, you know, on the front end, I think we can do a better job of, you know, one-stop shopping.
Exactly.
That, you know,
Well, that was pretty much my.
that was always, you know, something we strive for,
Right.
you know, with
In-
V-Trans
right.
is, you know, making it easier on the trucking companies, you know, make one call or one
Right.
visit, get all the
you're
permits and
done.
licenses you need. You know, let's do the same thing with FEMA, and then on the back end, figure out, well, this comes out of small business, this comes out of FEMA.
Exactly. That's
you know,
pretty much
I mean,
exactly what I said to them. Don't have these people filling out 2 and 3 different kinds. They've just lost, like you said, everything, and you're making them sit down and go name. So it's a good one form, share it, get it in a universal place where you know that they qualify, and just help them.
And that, you know, and that was, I won't say that was the highlight of the process, but
Oh my
I mean,
God.
just some of the horror stories
Yeah.
about then, you know, trying to get FEMA inspections and
Right,
stuff, and
right.
they would come out and do an inspection, and then, you know, the homeowners were trying to challenge it and
Yeah.
stuff. So then, well, FEMA says, well, just go take your video camera to my pocket. You know, just go around your house and videotape it. Well, you know, these houses have now been sitting out, you know, in the floodwaters,
Right.
or,
Oh, yuck.
you know,
Right.
for 6 weeks in the middle of summer,
Right.
and they're, you know, they're infested with mold and everything else. I mean, no,
Yeah,
it's
right,
not
right.
safe
Right.
If it's not safe for FEMA to go in with all the personal
Right.
protection, the
Right.
masks and suits and gloves and everything,
Why
why
us?
are you asking the homeowners to do that
Good
on their
point.
own?
Well, maybe this will, especially down south with no money, that's going to create some problem.
Well, I know Senator Welch has raised some concerns about the process,
Good.
and hopefully he has some success.
Well, I bet he's
in
hearing about it
getting-
from us,
correct,
from
right,
folks here.
Right.
So,
Totally, not to get you totally off the
no,
topic.
that's okay.
so
I love this stuff. So, but you should tell us about why you wanted to run for Attorney General, because I just am so impressed with anybody who wants to run for a statewide office, because I killed myself when I ran for a Senate seat, and I just couldn't. That was exhausting. But a statewide is huge.
It is very exhausting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And 6 months ago, I never even thought about this, to be honest
Right.
with you. But I, working with the federal government, working with the state very closely, working, both V-Trans,
Right.
DMV, and also the Department of Public Safety. We built some great partnerships during that
Yeah.
time, and through that, with the Vermont Highway Safety Alliance, the Vermont, Strategic Highway Safety Plan, I see a need to continue these partnerships. And then with my work with the town of Berlin as town administrator, I see these same opportunities,
Right.
these same frustrations working with the state, seeing what the state's spending their money on, seeing the processes that the state's using, and trying to question them on that and not getting anywhere. So the opportunity presented itself in August, through the primary process, and
Right.
and
That's
I,
great.
stepped up and says, well, I'll give
There
it a
you
run.
go. Good for you.
And I always said it's impossible to start a campaign in August and expect to be successful. When other people, let's face it, Charity Clark, the incumbent, she's been running for 2 years.
Right,
And
right.
the first thing she did was get elected is to start working on her
That's what they do.
reelection.
That's what they do.
And nothing to falter. And I'm trying to come in,
Yeah.
2 or 3 months before the election and try to start everything from scratch.
Right.
A campaign, a website, advertisements, everything else. So it's been fun. I really enjoy getting out and talking to people about the issues. That's what I really like, and that's what I like about the select board is talking to the residents
Yep.
about what's going on and why we're doing what we're doing and the reasons behind that.
That's great.
And,
Well,
they
let's.
may not agree with me on it, but they see
Well,
where I'm coming from.
Exactly. I
at least,
think with people, if you can, even in politics, if you disagree with them, but you can explain why, and it makes some sense, they're okay. I always found people are fairly respectful of your opinion, as long as you can explain it.
Right,
And it
right.
makes some sense that you've thought it out and this is your conclusion, rather than, yes, because, the party said so.
I had one gentleman call. You probably know who he is. I won't say his name, but just called up screaming. Why are you doing this? And so
Oh.
no, this is what happened. This is why we're doing
Yep.
it. And actually, the town wasn't paying for it. I think that helped a lot.
Oh, well, there you go.
The state was paying
Yeah,
for
right.
it, and he listened and understood what I was
Very good.
saying,
Yeah.
and we ended up having a very nice conversation. We talked for like 20 minutes.
Oh, good.
And at the end, I'm like, sir, I really enjoyed talking to you, and
Nice.
hope we can do it again in the future. So, that's
you
yeah.
left him with a good feeling.
I
That's
hope
a good
so,
thing.
right.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit. You mentioned priorities. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your priorities are and why you think that you will certainly do a better job than the incumbent, bringing some new ideas and new energy perhaps to the job?
Well, we kind of touched it a little bit already. Is the issue of crime in this state? Crime is totally out of control in this state.
For sure.
Looking at the FBI statistics, the crime rate in Vermont has doubled since 2014,
Right.
whereas it's been relatively flat nationwide. And you have to look at what the reasons behind that increase are. And as we're talking before the taping started,
Right.
there's no holding people accountable anymore for their actions, and that has to be the first step.
Right.
We need prosecutors that will do their job, and their job is to prosecute cases. It's to evaluate
Right.
the evidence and decide if there's enough evidence to move forward with this individual case or not. It's not their job to wholesale say, I don't want to prosecute this type of case or
Right.
this dollar amount of case. That's not their job. If they want to do that, they need to join the legislature. They're,
Yeah, that's
they're,
right.
there's a reason why we have different branches of government to begin with, and the separation of powers, which is a fundamental building block
Right.
of our governmental system, is that these checks and balances, and my thought is by these state attorneys doing this, they are violating that checks and balances process.
Right.
So
And some of them, if I may, have been very vocal about that. I mean, they don't care. They just say, this is what I think. One or two come to mind.
I can probably name them as well, and
I'm sure you
I might let my tongue slip and say them afterwards. But
yeah, and it's upsetting. Because you know
is.
what their job is, and there they are saying, no, these people don't deserve to be in jail, and blah blah blah. And we shouldn't penalize women. What?
And these decisions, and sure, in some cases, that might be the proper outcome, but they need to be decided on a case-by-case basis, based on the facts, the likelihood of rehabilitation, or what other options are available, and those options should be explored and taken advantage of, and whether it's substance and alcohol treatment, whether it's mental health issues. Whether it is homelessness or food insecurity issues, domestic violence is another huge issue in the state. Get the safety needed there.
Yep.
It's not a one size fits all.
Right.
And just like you can't throw everything out to diversion or throw away all the cases, it really takes looking at the root cause to find the appropriate outcome for these cases, and the intent is to be effective. It's not just to lock people in jail and keep them there for 5 years, 10 years, or life. Though that some people, as we mentioned earlier, that might be what is needed if they cannot conduct themselves in accordance with the norms of society. But others, I truly feel that with some maybe it's career training, whether it's substance abuse treatment or something. We can help them to become a function, a successful member of society, and that's what I want. I just want everybody to be successful.
Yeah,
whether you're a victim or an offender. I want to raise, I want to say, raise all bars, but I want to raise everybody up, give them the opportunities to be able to do that.
That's great. Well, and you're right. Some people do belong. Maybe it'd get through to them if they are in jail, but also any of the other opportunities we have here, because we offer an awful lot. I think the one thing I did years ago. I don't know if you said you took this, where it was an exercise we did where we were just let out of jail. And you had to go to this is all, pretend sort of thing. And you had to go to your probation officer, but you had to get a home, you had to get a job, you had to do all this stuff, and then report back to your caseworker in 2 weeks. And I flunked. I mean, it was impossible to get it all done, and I was not alone in this group, because the message was that we don't prepare these people for reentry. And that's why sometimes they find it easier to reoffend and return to where they feel safer or cared for or something. But that was amazing.
Not just for reentry, but basic education to begin with.
Well, there you go.
I must have been like 5 or 6 years after I graduated from high school. I was invited back to the school, because everybody had basically been through college at that point, and kind of a after action type review. So what's worked? What did we do in school that worked? What didn't? So I'm like, well, nobody told me that. I moved out on my own. I got my own phone. Like, this is when everybody still had the old landline
oh my God,
phones, you know,
yeah, right, the
the old
box.
dial, rotary dial, you know,
Right.
with the big long cord in your kitchen, you know, nobody tells you you'd have to put down an $80 deposit
Right.
to do
Right.
that,
Right.
you know, and how to fill out a credit card application.
Exactly.
And,
Or
and things
even
like
to know the
that.
big
So,
thing with people is finding the documents that they need. You know, the birth certificate, the Social Security, things that you need on the outside that they have no idea, you know, where it is even at this point. If they've been in for 5, 10 years, where the heck do you start finding it? I mean,
Right,
it's
right.
really, it's just awful. So there's a lot of work that needs to be
yeah,
done.
and
I
to compound
agree.
it, you know, you mentioned how you know, finding housing. Well,
Yep.
you know, the housing market is so tight right
Right.
now.
It's
You know, the
scary.
housing stock's just not available. You know, so what, you know, what are you left with if you're being released from, you know, from incarceration
Right.
and you don't have the family network or something that can
Exactly.
take you in,
Exactly.
and even if they, you know, if they can, I mean,
Yeah,
you know, that's
not good for you as an
burden.
individual either.
It's not good for you. It's
Yeah.
not good for, you know, your parents or
Yeah, right.
whatever.
Exactly.
But there's just no alternatives out there
Right,
right now.
right. So when you had mentioned the state's attorneys, there are assistant AGs out in we had one in transportation. Every major department has at least one, if not more. I think in transportation, I think we had 3.
I know Tom
Tom
McCormick,
McCormick, he was
in
DMV.
Mhm.
And oh my gosh, I apologize, I forget. I know who they are, but I can't remember their names. But anyway, legally they reported to the AG, which would be you. But then on a daily basis, they reported
They were embedded
to
with
me
the
and
agency.
you know
Right.
what they would do. And that takes a little bit of doing because you really need to know every department just to help them and guide them about what you think they should be doing if something comes up. I mean, I was thinking about that the other day. That's a huge job, being AG, being the top cop.
Correct, and like you said, it's basically the law firm for the state.
Well, exactly. There you go.
So it's not just a prosecutorial side,
Right.
Which there's plenty of work there. I mean, like I said before, I like building partnership, partnering with the state's attorneys, partnering with the U.S. attorney.
Oh, right.
You know, we have a large federal presence in the state. You know, with the northern border and everything.
Yep.
Partnering with the regional, the other attorney generals in the surrounding
Right,
states.
right.
There's plenty of opportunities there that I would like to capitalize on, but also, so like you said, for the other, the Consumer Assistance Bureau,
Yep.
that is a huge program with the Attorney General's office, and their workload is increasing every day and getting more difficult every day. You know, especially now with this proliferation of these online
Oh, scams and stuff? Oh, my
scams
God.
and
Yep.
and phishing emails
Right.
and malware and I mean, you know, between personal and work, I probably get one suspicious email at least a day. And, you know, I got one, you know, at work last night. It looked to be to try to make it look like an invoice, you know, that's downloaded. And I'm like, I'm not even going to open this.
Right.
You know, it's not from a known vendor.
Right.
It just
Oh, just
I'm
delete.
I'm going to delete it. Correct. And
Right.
and if something the town owes you money, I'm
They'll call
sorry,
you.
but sorry, not sorry.
they'll find
but
you.
that's right.
That's what I figure. If I deleted something I shouldn't, they'll track me down.
They'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, and then you hear about these gift card scams and everything else, and it takes a lot of investigative work to track these down, and also not just the work, but the skill set to be able to look
right,
into the
right.
do the I want to say the packet tracing and IP addresses and doing all that, and that's a skill set we need to develop
For sure.
with the law enforcement officers in the state. We're very lucky, with Detective Withrow here in Berlin,
Yep.
That he's able to do some of that stuff, and
That's
he's
great.
always increasing his his learning on those topics.
Right.
But we need to do, instead of just a piecemeal hit and miss here and there, I think we need a more centralized collective training, through the Criminal Justice Training Council. Here again, of which the AG is
Right.
a member of that council, though she usually sends a proxy instead of
right.
herself.
Designate, right.
But I, here again, if I was in that position, I would attend those meetings directly.
Really?
and not
That's-
send-
I-
not
that's
send a
great.
proxy. Because I think the training,
I think
I
it's
think a
critical.
lot of the
You're right.
issues that people have with law enforcement,
Yep.
falls back on training.
Yep. No, I agree with you, and things have changed a little, and I feel so bad for law enforcement because they're forever under scrutiny, and then when you go and actually do catch somebody, you turn around and you see them out again in a couple of days. I mean, how depressing can that be? I mean, trying to do your job as best you can, and
I saw something, I think it was out of South Burlington a week or two ago. It was a stolen car had been recovered, and the car was impounded for a longer time while they
right,
did all their, whatever they processing they
Right,
do to release
right.
it to the owners. The car was impounded longer than the offenders were locked up.
great,
Excellent.
excellent. I thought you were gonna say it was stolen from impound, and that would have been sad, but
I'm sure that's happened
But
before.
I'm sure it has. I'm sure it has. So, I mean, this job is bigger than a breadbasket. That's for sure. And when you get there, and assuming that you're elected, and how would you even start? There's just so much we can learn from the outside, until you're actually in the job. How would you start to get to know the scope of responsibilities and where we are? Because I think you get a deputy, I believe. Is it probably not? It's probably an assistant AG. How would you start? Have you thought of that? Because that's mind-boggling.
Not really. One thing, I guess from my management style is I don't like to be a micromanager. I like to know what's going
Good.
on, but I like surrounding myself with the best people and hiring them for their skills and what they
Right.
can bring, and stay out of their way.
Yeah.
I've got some definitive thoughts I have when it comes to certain topics, and especially when it comes related to spending. I think there's a lot of issues I hear about talking to state employees, and seeing what goes on from the town side, looking
Right,
at the
right.
state. A lot of issues with spending and contracting, and I think the Attorney General can play a role in this. And somebody asked me the other day, wasn't that the role of legislature? I go, well, they can appropriate the money,
Right.
but when it comes down to actually executing
Yeah,
that,
enforcement is you.
does need to come.
Right.
And if we're signing these contracts, well, they need to be reviewed,
Right.
by the deputy assigned to that
Yep.
department, and get passed on. If it's a contract that doesn't work out in the best interest of the state,
Right.
then it's going to go in the black hole on my
Right.
desk.
That's it. End it.
Until we can find some
Yep.
other alternative.
Yep.
I mean, and some of the same thing with the processes of the state. When you question the state, what authority do you have to do this? And where have you delegated that authority to this lower level manager?
Right.
And what is the due process provisions that I, as a town, have to
Right,
challenge you
right.
on this? All of a sudden, they back up and they drop the issue and say, you're fine. I mean, okay, so there is
there you go.
probably something not quite right going on there, you
Right.
know?
Well, and you know what? Over time, it changes without you even recognizing. I know this
Mm-hmm.
sounds stupid, but you know how it started, but somehow it just changes. I don't know, and you have to sort of stop and go, hey, we got to move it back a little bit and get refocused. I think that's good to do with everything in state government. They lose focus. Maybe that's the way to say
Exactly. Well, systems change, processes change, people change, and what worked 10 years ago,
Exactly.
it may not work the best today.
Exactly.
And I totally agree that,
We've
it's
always
a
done
good
it this
time.
way.
You know, when
Worked.
I was with the federal government, there's two reasons why we had meetings. We had one last year, or we didn't have one last year.
Just because.
Because
That's
we have
funny.
one, we
That's
have one
funny.
every year. Well, why? Because
Right.
we just have
Right.
one every year.
Right.
You know,
Well-
or we didn't have one last year, so let's have one this year.
Yeah.
Well, why? You know, maybe the reason
Exactly.
why we didn't have one last year is because there's
Nothing to
no
say.
need to have a meeting.
Well, that's in DMV, of course. We'd say, do you ask all these questions, pages and pages. Do you ever check on the answer? No, we just ask it because we have to have it. Why?
Correct.
And when we redid the forms, oh my God, we were fighting till we were blue in the face because I said, because we've always done it. I said, do not give me that as an answer. Is there a reason to ask for this information?
Right,
And half the
right.
time they sometimes, yes, it's very valid and blah, blah. But other times, I don't know. I said, do you ever check? No. Well, then don't ask for it.
And you might remember this, from these days not too long ago with DMV. We had the CVIS, Commercial Vehicle Information Systems program.
right.
And, the first thing they said is don't automate a bad process. If the
Exactly.
process is bad on paper, it's going to be bad
Exactly.
in computer.
Just faster.
Correct.
Yep. Well, we don't do Big Bang too well in the state, I don't think, because of exactly that. They don't look at the process.
Well, here again, the DMV, refresh. I mean, how long has that been going on? How many millions of dollars have we spent on
Right,
that
exactly.
with HP and some of these other contracts and
Yep, you're right.
still to this
I
day,
have lived
and-
through more than one of them.
Right,
And it's
right.
very sad.
and I hear but I hear this type of thing goes on all the time
Yeah.
that these multi-million-dollar software systems and
for
stuff
sure,
are being
right.
implemented, and the agents are saying, the individual agencies are
Right.
saying this won't work for us, and the ADS employees, Agency of Digital Services, the IT
Yeah,
of the
right,
state government
right.
are their employees saying this is not a good system, and it's still being pushed through to the cost of millions and millions of
Yep,
dollars,
that's
and then the agency head leaves their position with the state and goes to work for that contract.
We've had that happen, that's for
Right,
sure.
right.
Yeah, I know. The one person, I'm looking at the time, the one person who did it right, and I've run into her in Price Chopper a couple of times, Sybil McShane was head of the libraries, and she wanted to computerize it. She went to a store and bought an off-the-shelf computer system, basic, and she retrofitted her system into the basic, and it's been working fine for, I don't know, 10 years. Because she didn't do any, because we always have all these changes and twists and turns, and you can't design a system that twisty and turny to get all the things covered. And she just streamlined it, and that was it, and it worked. Because especially at DMV, if you try to copy what the heck we've done, it was ridiculous. We fail.
It's just piecemeal
Yep.
upon piecemeal
Right.
of these old. I don't even know what language they were written in, mainframe systems and patched here and everything, and in the end it works, but try to replicate it,
Yeah, you can't.
with a newer modern
Yep.
system is as we've seen, it's very difficult.
Yep, it is.
But the other thing, and I'm probably going to be very popular for saying this, we have some great talent in our state and
That we
with our
do.
state employees. And one example of this is here again, the Agency of Digital Services. They were just doing a major upgrade to their personnel system, their payroll system.
Ah.
And so it's a system that affects
Right.
10,000 employees
Right.
that they can get paid, and the state was looking to go outside to an outside contractor to implement this major upgrade,
Yep.
and the state, the ADS employee said, no, we can do this in house, and it was several month process, a lot of testing.
Yeah.
I think they call it working in the sandbox.
Oh,
I think that's a term
yeah,
they
right,
use.
right.
And beta testing and so forth, and got it all ironed out, and they were going to implement it over a weekend, over the course of several days, and in the end, it worked basically flawlessly.
Awesome.
To the point of saving, I heard it was like $18 to $20 million
Oh,
for the
my
state
word.
by doing it in house.
Because we didn't use outside consultants.
That's right, and that's kind
Good for
of
them.
the talent that we have
That's
working
great.
in state government that I think gets overlooked a lot of times.
That's great.
And another thing I like to do is I like to recognize the talent.
That's great. I didn't hear
I'm telling
that.
you, if we
That's
have great
wonderful.
employees,
Yep,
and
we
they do exceptional work.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to call,
Just say it,
I would say
right.
call them up, but to publicize that
Yep.
and stuff.
Yeah, and they're not exactly given the most current tools to work with either.
Exactly,
So,
that's right.
Or the most plush environment either, for that
Right.
matter. So they do. They work very hard. I love state government, and I love the employees. That's cool. So I know when you were mentioning that the study on crime, and I had read that study, and they took all the statistics and broke them into 4 different properties: crime against a person, crime against society, which included such things as prostitution, but also animal cruelty, which just gets me crazy, property crimes, and drug crimes, and they're all up. Every one of them is up. And I know for quite a while through COVID, we didn't hear much about drugs. It's like the problem went away. And my husband and I were talking one night about it, and I said, you don't hear much about it, but I will guarantee you it is not getting any better, because people are home and tense and frustrated, and I'm sure that the drugs are just, you must see a lot of that in town, don't you?
But also keep in mind, what was going on, not just locally, but nationally.
Right.
With the COVID restrictions that were going on, people weren't traveling as much, and even, law enforcement was backing off. They weren't, making the traffic stops and the arrests from those like they were before. Both, to protect themselves from COVID, but also potentially if they were exposed to COVID and, infecting the occupants of the vehicle or anything like that. So I, get a lot of reasons. Just because the numbers aren't there doesn't equate to the problem wasn't
Well,
there.
no, I think it's there, and it's really showing its ugly face these days, for sure.
Correct.
It's here, and it's probably worse than it was. But you're right about COVID. It was just
and then compound that with the sociological issues of being
with your loved ones all day.
Being with the loved ones all day. Being cut off from friends, or at least face-to-face interactions, with your friends, your classmates, and things like that. The online gaming and cell phones and Insta chat and stuff like that. That's no replacement for actual face-to-face interaction.
It's kind of nice, isn't it?
Right.
I sort of maybe that's why I like to do this show so much, because
you get to meet a variety of people and stuff. Yeah.
And talking. It's great. So I guess when we were talking about property crimes, when we had the chief of police from Berlin on that show we were talking about, most of the property crimes and stuff seem to have been more in the mall area, things that are happening up there, whether it's impacting people or something. But now we're starting to see it at homes, correct? I mean, people are doing things to your home.
We have a large commercial base in Berlin, which we love. We love our stores and love our businesses, and we try to keep things business friendly in town. But that does bring with it the risk of shoplifting and so forth. Here again, you look at my 2 opponents; they're very weak on property crimes, on shoplifting, and to the point the legislature had to take some action in the last session to try to start beefing up those laws again. But I'm a big believer that severity follows frequency. I said a lot in my previous job that, you know, if you have somebody, you know, who gets a lot of speeding tickets, and then maybe they, you know, then they start getting, you know, some fender benders or something. Well, sooner or later, then they're going to be involved in a major catastrophic fatal crash or something like that. That you could see it coming by looking at their driving record and stuff. And I'm, you know, I feel the same way that you know, it's one thing if you start because you're stealing, you know, a set of gloves because winter's coming and you don't have anything. But then, you know, you get away with that, then you become a little bit more bold, and maybe, you know, I can steal something else, or maybe I can steal a couple jackets and sell them and make some money, and then it comes to TVs or
bigger, better.
Yeah, that's right. And then, you know, it just you're just one heartbeat away from something going wrong, and a knife being pulled or a gun being pulled, and now you're looking at serious injury, if not death. So. So it's all related.
It sounds, knowing, I do know the laws a little bit, not very much, and certainly not, I'm sure, like you do. You're going to have to start working with the legislature at some point to really start changing the laws and making them tougher, or are they already there and we're just not following the laws? Because I think our laws have over the years seemed okay, but maybe we're just not following them, or do we need new laws?
I think we need to look at both. You know, we need to enforce what we have on the books. Trevor Whipple, another well-known individual in Berlin, who is the law enforcement liaison for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. He was doing a webinar a couple weeks ago and talking about ordinance enforcement. And he says, you know, an ordinance without enforcement is just good advice.
I love Trevor.
That's it exactly. And I'm not saying we need to nail you for everything, but you know, if
it's there for a reason, right?
You know, and I say, you know, are we enforcing this ordinance? And you know, if they're saying no, well then, do we really need to have it on the books?
Right. That's the answer. Right? That's the question.
If we're not, does something need to be changed about the ordinance? You know, the provisions in there. So I think it needs both. We do need to look at the statutes on the books, and we need to enforce what's there, or make them enforceable. But also look at what's working and not working, and see what changes we need to be made there. You know, like we said, you know, the legislature made some effort in this past session. It's not nearly enough. One of the things I hope to do, I'm going to ask the 3 existing incumbents for Washington County. You know, hey, look what happened in Berry City, how that was related to last July. What have you done in the past 2 years to change the situation? What have you personally, as our Washington County Senator, done, and see what the responses are? I think it's going to be they've not done much.
No, they haven't done it. They haven't done much.
They haven't done anything. I went there.
They have not done. No, they haven't.
You might want them on the show. I'll say it.
The one thing they did have a conniption about was the backlog in the courts. And there was a lot of discussion about that about 2 years ago, I guess. Where they the backlog was ridiculous. And I think it's gotten better, but still backlog.
It still exists. And here again, a lot of this is coming out of COVID when the courthouses were shut down, and you're trying to experiment moving to online hearings and everything. And there's always a learning curve with that, which is understandable. But at the same time, if you don't hold people responsible and you release them out on conditions and they give them the opportunity to violate those conditions, they're in the meantime racking up more cases before their original case is even heard or resolved. So now instead of just dealing with one case, now you're dealing with half a dozen or a dozen or even more.
I think the people that I knew that worked in the office, the Attorney General's office in Montpelier, not out in the different departments, I think they would welcome change. I think they would welcome somebody who said, let's do it and do it right, and hold people accountable, because how else do people learn? How else do you recognize when somebody's done something really great or not so great, and hold them accountable? I just think they would. I can't imagine doing a job when it's not really done. It's sort of half done.
I'm doing this to, I just had in my mind what I was going to say. I'm doing this, but to improve the lives of Vermonters, but for the benefit of the attorneys in the Attorney General's office.
Right.
I'm not doing this for my own. I'm not on a glitzy parade,
Right.
which my incumbent is. I mean, she's out there. She's trying to make the big cases, suing Meta,
Right,
suing
right.
TikTok, and all these, and getting pennies in a settlement, and not getting any real results. For the benefit of padding her resume
Right.
as she moves on to larger things. I wish her the success in what she does. She's, I've met her a couple of times now. Very nice individual.
right.
But that's not what I'm doing this for. I'm not doing this to pad my own resume. I'm hoping that maybe I can make lives better for all Vermonters.
Well, there's a message that needs to be out there,
Mm-hmm.
and what's is happening now. It seems to me it's not working. Certainly not as well as it could be. And this is Vermont. We used to be the safest.
Right.
I think we've sort of lost that title. I don't think we've fallen too far, but we're headed in the wrong direction.
Definitely. Keep in mind, Vermont's only 600-some thousand
Right,
residents.
right.
I mean, many cities in the
Yes.
country are larger than the whole
Yep.
state of Vermont.
Right.
So you have to keep things in perspective. Where our total number of homicides is low, but compared to the whole state and compared to where we were 10 years
Right,
ago, it's just astronomical.
Yeah. Well, and so what are you going to be doing? What do we have now? 10 days left? 10, 12 days left. Numbers are kind of
They're coming down.
Anything
yes.
special planned for the next 2 weeks? or-
Just getting out there, meeting with everybody I can. I'm going down to Barstow Stool next Wednesday. Looking forward to meeting with the students down there.
Oh, great.
I was
That's
up
great.
at Wilson Central School last Friday. Excellent forum
Right.
with the students there. And,
I bet
they asked
they're
some,
sharp, aren't they?
They
these
are.
kids?
The
They
students
tell me.
wrote the questions.
Yep.
You could tell the students had researched the questions, and they were able to ask
Great.
them, and they did a great job. That was a fun time.
Yeah, I bet. And now this high school?
Middle school.
Oh, really? Middle school. Cool.
Yes.
Well, that's actually the age I like when I used to teach Sunday school, because they're old enough that they don't want to press their luck that get you angry, and yet you can still have a great conversation with them. They're adult enough to have a real conversation, but there's that little respect that's still there when they're little.
Yeah, I'm sure the teachers reviewed the
maybe.
questions
Right.
beforehand.
Right.
That they formally asked during the forum, but we had a little meet and greet
Oh, great.
before.
And was just
the
you, or were
forum.
other?
There were other candidates there.
Oh, great.
The governor, lieutenant governor,
Nice.
Congressman Ballant were there, and they're the candidates. But there was a little meet and greet before, and the
Excellent.
students came up even during there, and they were asking great questions here. They're asking about
That's
the
great.
crime in Burlington
Oh.
and things like that. So they were a smart group of students.
That's great.
Really enjoyed it.
I think we sometimes sell them short, the kids. We just assume that things
It was really neat to see. We assume they're on their phones.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
They're paying
and-
attention.
And game. They really are.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have a very good website. Could you tell folks how to reach out and get information on you?
The website's real easy. It's www.turenelson.com, TureNelson.com.
There you go. And you have all of your positions out there, which I read.
And I really wish I had time to add more to those.
Well-
That's one of the things I really wanted to do as part of this campaign is write more papers and stuff. And I still have these ideas running around my mind, but trying to get them on paper is.
If by chance you do not win, what you should do is keep doing that and keep visible the next 2 years,
Right.
and say, I'm back.
Yep.
There you go. Because it's name recognition.
Correct.
That's a real big part of running and campaigning.
Right. Right.
So, but I guess I don't know if you have any folks helping you or anything, because the state is maybe small, but it's big. when you're out in the car for 3.5 hours going south and north. Have you
right.
have you been all over? Do you feel comfortable that
I've been around. I would
Yeah.
still love to get out more. I love talking to people,
Yeah.
and that was the funnest part of campaigning.
That's
so
good. Yeah,
getting
people
around
are
and talking
wonderful,
to
and you knock on their door, and they get finished with the initial "Who are you?" and all of a sudden they get into this gab and stuff, and it's fun. And
Right.
if they feel like they can share with you, you really hear some interesting ideas, and people have good ideas if they're asked.
And that was one thing, back from when I was a police officer, many years ago.
Right.
It was something, I forget, it was like a car break-in or something. Somebody stole some cassette tapes. I'll explain what cassette tapes are to the
People
younger
are-
audience
yeah,
pretty soon.
right.
But, out of a car, and so I was just, walking around the neighborhood and, asking, hey, did you see anything last night? And no, I didn't see anything. But, on Saturday nights I see something out behind the neighbor's house or something. And they appreciate, being able to talk to a police officer. They really do.
Right.
And like I said, it's not just the incident at hand that we're talking about, but, the victim saw that I was doing it. The neighbors appreciated
Yeah, for
talking
sure.
to, and
sure.
nothing can go, I don't see a downside for that.
That's good. But you've had experience door knocking. That's good.
Right.
That's good. Because we have some places in this state which are in the middle of nowhere.
Correct.
Even in Berlin, I was shocked at some of the roads we have in Berlin that go truly to nowhere. And then there's a little house at the end, and you're like, whoa.
That's right. Right.
Thank God they're all wonderful people. But,
They are, yes.
So, Ture, any final words and telling folks why they should vote for you? And I think a lot. I don't know how our early voting has gone.
Well, I just checked in Berlin before I came up here, and the town clerk thought that about 600 ballots had been turned in already, which is not quite a third of the checklist, which is about 1,900 on the checklist. And from what I've seen working previous elections, there's a lot of people will have the ballots filled out,
but bring them with
and just drop them off on.
I've done that. I don't know if that probably
election day.
doesn't
So
help.
I'm sure there's a lot more ballots already prepared, waiting to bring in.
So
but,
why should we vote for Ture Nelson?
I kind of mentioned it already. I'm in this to make lives better for all Vermonters. I don't want to bring everybody down. I want to work to bring everybody up, and I will, do my darndest. Can I say that?
You can say darndest.
Okay, I will do my darndest to do that for everybody in Vermont.
That's great. You also said, which I didn't say in the beginning of the show, I almost was like a great tagline, because you said, somebody said in an article, I think it was Digger, he is in it for the results.
Correct.
And I love that. I may steal it one of these days. I mean,
I'll sell it to you.
Why? Okay, there you go. Why are we doing all of this? To make it better.
If it's not for the results, then why are you doing that?
Right, exactly. Yes. Except for self-brandizement and all that good
Correct.
stuff, and results are better.
That's right.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate you tuning in. This is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites.